Welcome to Remnants of a Sound Blast. I hope everybody's having a great evening. And before I get started with tonight's video, I just want to say thank you for all the people who have been liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing to this channel. It really gives me a lot of motivation to keep going. So I just want to say thank you. I really do appreciate that. Thumbs up, keep rocking. Now tonight's video is going to be based around an album that was released 39 years ago on April 12th, 1984. And it's the 10th studio album from Canadian prog rock band Rush. And here's the cover. Grace Under Pressure. There's the back cover. Now for me personally, this album didn't come into my radar until recently. And what I mean by recently is over the last 5 years or so. I've owned an album for quite a while, but I never really gave it too much of a listen outside of maybe the first track or two. But I was always under the impression and notion that this album was just another one of those mid-80s albums where it was a lot of big keyboards and synthesizers and the guitar riff took a back seat. And although that is true to a certain extent on this album, the guitars are big and menacing, full, atmospheric, and futuristic. There's not really a lot of guitar riffs, so to speak, but he plays a lot of full chords that really fills in the spaces where it's needed. And Alex Lifeson is just sounding so big on this album. It's unbelievable. I think this is probably the greatest guitar sound and tone that he's ever had through Rush's career. Now this is a very interesting period for Rush because they were adopting a lot of sounds from ska and reggae and new wave and implementing that into their sound, which was more accessible to a lot of people. They were transitioning really well out of that late 70s prog rock era. The majority of the album's lyrics are based around Cold War fears, prison camps, a dystopian type world, and self-destructing catastrophe. So it's a really dark and futuristic type album. And although the lyrics are dark, the music's still upbeat, which gives it a really good tension and contrast. Rush was heavily influenced by the Police at this point, which is evident on songs like Vital Signs from Moving Pictures, Digital Man from Signals, and The Enemy Within on Grace Under Pressure. Another thing that I noticed about Alex Lifeson's guitar playing on this album is that his solos in particular were played in a more rhythmic sense than individual notes. If I had to describe his guitar, sound, and tone in 2 words on this album, it would be massive and futuristic. Now personally, I think Alex had the best tone on these early 80s Rush albums, with the use of technology, the type of pedals he was using, and the chorus effects to achieve that massive sound. Neil Peart also experimented and upped his game with the use of electronic percussion, but I believe he used it sparingly and wisely, not to overcomplicate or overcompensate. Now for this album, Geddy Lee switched to the Steinberger L2 model bass with no headstock, which is a much lighter bass. It's much easier to get around and play. It has a much thinner tone than previous Rush albums, but I believe it did work for this particular album. He used it through Power Windows, and I believe he retired it after Hold Your Fire. Now one of the biggest takeaways I have from this album is Alex Lifeson's guitar playing once again. He just progressed and got better and better and better with each album. If you take the first Rush album and you go all the way through to Clockwork Angels, you could just hear his progression the whole way through. And up to this point on 1984's Grace Under Pressure, I believe that this was their favorite album collectively as a unit. So what I did today when I was listening to the album back to back is I took down some notes from each song so I can go ahead and just give a little explanation and opinion on what I think about each song and the album review as a whole. I'm going to read this as follows. It says, the strong points of the album are the opening track, Distant Early Warning, which is accompanied with a great video that grabbed my attention. Now I'm going to stop there and say I distinctly remember that video when it came on MTV. I'm not sure how old I was maybe 13 or so. And I just remember it had that kid flying around on a little red rocket ship, and he was kind of going through suburbs and subdivisions and people's houses and skyscrapers and everything else. And it was a great video. It's a great song. It's got a real catchy chorus. It opens up with a simple keyboard riff, and it's got some really strong menacing big guitars on a guitar solo. It's just kind of frenzied and everything, but it just adds to the tension of the song. It's a really great opening track and one of my personal favorite Rush songs of all time. Second track on the album is After Image, and it has some really powerful lyrics from Neil Peart. And it says, the lyrics deal with the loss of a friend and the emotional aftermath that follows. The opening lyric states, suddenly you were gone from all the lives you've left your mark upon. And I'll say this, ironically, I was listening to this song when I found out that Neil Peart died in 2020. And so I went back and read the lyrics to the song while I still had that fresh in my mind about Peart dying. And it was so powerful, so emotional. I actually broke down and I cried because it just made so much sense. It was so ironic, you know, like I said, the lyrics talk about dealing with the emotional loss of someone after they've left this earth. So it was a really, really emotional day for me, and this song has stuck with me ever since, and it's absolutely one of my favorite Rush songs as well. The Body Electric with that great chorus, 1001001 SOS. Red Sector A, written about a nuclear war concentration camp. I believe Geddy Lee had some inspiration from his parents when they were in that situation. In the lyric, are we the last ones left alive? Are we the only human beings to survive? And the up-tempo, fast-paced, the enemy within are all strong, with the only two low points, in my opinion, being kid gloves and red lenses. Between the Wheels is dark, brooding, menacing. The guitar chords are ominous. Big chords that ring out with sustain, that add to the dark theme of the lyric. The keyboards have a repetitive minor key riff on the downbeat that gives the song a push and pull tension against the guitar and the drum pattern. Yeah, that's a really great song, Between the Wheels. It's catchy, it's dark, it's menacing, it's not up-tempo and upbeat. It's not one of the more happy poppy songs on the album. It's definitely a deep track, but absolutely one of the best ones for sure, which is the closing track. Promotional videos were shot for the songs Distant Early Warning, After Image, The Body Electric, and The Enemy Within. So you have Distant Early Warning, After Image, Red Sector A, The Enemy Within, The Body Electric, Kid Gloves, Red Lenses. Probably my least favorite song on the album is Red Lenses. And Between the Wheels, probably one of my favorite tracks. So all that being said, if I had to rate this album from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, I would give it a 3.8 to 4. I think the guitars are the biggest takeaway from this album, and also Neil Peart upped his game. He really extended the use of electronic percussions, but he didn't overdo it or overkill it. He did it sparingly and wisely. So there you have it. There's my review of Rush, Grace Under Pressure from 1984. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I want to thank everyone for liking, sharing, and commenting. It really motivates me to keep going. I hope everybody has a great evening. And like I say at the end of all of my videos, until next time, y'all keep rocking and stay safe.